Hi, this is Dr. Swapna and I welcome you to your Learn Lab. If you are a BA Psychology student of IGNOU looking for help in your studies, you have reached the right place. Here we have lecture videos on different core and elective subjects of BA Psychology and we help you to ace your exams. So hit subscribe and join me on this learning journey. Today in this video, we continue with the second block of BPCC 102, which is Biopsychology. In our last video, we studied about central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. In case you haven't watched it, I'll add the link to the playlist in the description. Okay, so we learned that nervous system can be classified into central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. Central nervous system is further classified into brain and spinal cord, and peripheral nervous system is all about neurons which are outside the brain and spinal cord, right? In this video, we are going to study specifically about spinal cord, an important part of the central nervous system, which partners with the brain to control and coordinate all your body functions. Alright, so we dig deeper into the spinal cord, which is an important part of our central nervous system. What are we going to study in this video? We'll see what is the spinal cord, we'll see what is the structure of the spinal cord, we'll study the different functions of the spinal cord and we'll also see what are reflex actions. Okay. What is spinal cord? It is a long tube-like structure made of nervous tissue. What is nervous tissue? You know what is a tissue, right? It's a collection of cells, a group of cells that perform a particular function, right? And what are the different cells you will see in nervous tissue? One is neurons. These are the actual conducting cells which forms the functional unit of a nervous system. Other than that, we have glial cells. These are the cells that support neurons to do its function, right? So spinal cord is a long tube-like structure made of neurons and glial cells. All right. It starts at the base of the brain. Where does it start? It starts at the base of the brain from the brainstem and runs down the backbone or the spine. You can see here it starts from the base of the brain and runs all the way down through your spine to this area which is called pelvis. Okay. It acts as a central pathway for transmitting messages between the brain and the rest of the body. What does it do? It acts as a central pathway or kind of a highway for transmitting messages between the brain and rest of the body. All right. Now the shape of the spinal cord is oval, cylindrical and elongated. It's oval in shape, it's cylindrical in shape and it is also elongated. All right. And its size is about 45 centimeters long and 2 centimeters wide in an average human. So this number may vary. This is an average number in general if you have to say, but this may not be the size of spinal cord in every human being. All right. So that was spinal cord for you. Let's look deeper into the structure of the spinal cord. Spinal cord is protected by mainly three layers. First is the vertebral column. This is the bony cover. So if you touch your back, your spine, you will feel a hard bony structure. That is the vertebral column. Inside the bony cover of the vertebral column, there are meninges. These are the three protective layers. And other than meninges, there is a fluid also that cushions and supports the spinal cord. This fluid is called cerebrospinal fluid or CSF. Alright, so the spinal cord, being a very important part of the central nervous system, is highly protected by these three layers. First is a strong bony cover, which is called vertebral column. Next is a three-layer protection, which is called meninges. Then there is a fluid protection also. This fluid cushions the spinal cord and it also supports it, and this fluid is called cerebrospinal fluid. Let's look at each of these one by one. So the first protective layer is the vertebral column. It is also known as spine. I'm sure you have heard of this word spine, right? So scientifically, the name of the spine would be vertebral column. It's a bony structure. It's made of bones. It runs along the back from the skull to the pelvis. We have already seen that starts from the base of the skull all the way to the pelvis, that is this area. Okay, and vertebral column is composed of vertebrae. And what is a vertebrae? Vertebrae are individual bones that make up the spine, and these bones are stacked top one over the top of the other. Like you can see it here, you can see that there are all these small bones that are arranged one on top of the other, and each of these bones are connected to each other by intervertebral discs. So between these two bones there will be an intervertebral disc. Between these two bones also there would be an intervertebral disc. Between every two bones you will see an intervertebral disc. So when you hear that someone has a slip disc, this is the disc that is getting slipped, okay? So what does vertebral column do? It provides support, protect the spinal cord, and facilitate the movement also. All right. Inside the vertebral column, spinal cord is covered by another layer of protection called spinal meninges. So why do you think spinal cord needs all this protection? Because it's composed of very soft tissue which is made of neurons and glial cells. And because this is a part of the central nervous system, it requires all the protection it can get, right? So first we had the vertebral column, which is a very bony cover. Inside this bony cover, we have another three layers which are called spinal meninges. And what does the spinal meninges do? They provide nutrition and protection to the spinal cord. All right, let's see what are these three spinal meninges. First one is dura mater. Okay, dura mater is the outermost thick, toughest and fibrous layer covering the spinal cord. See, you can see the diagram here. This is the spinal cord and we have separated out the layers. The outermost layer, but inside the vertebral column, is the dura mater. Okay, this is outermost. It's very thick, it's very tough, and it's made of fibrous tissues, and it covers the spinal cord. Inside the dura mater, we have this arachnoid mater. Arachnoid mater is thin, mesh-like, soft, and spongy middle layer. Okay, you can see this here, arachnoid matter. Inside the arachnoid matter, the third layer, we have the pia mater. You can see this white layer. All right, this is the innermost, most delicate, and this layer has the pain receptors and capillaries. Capillaries are the blood vessels that are bringing in blood to the spinal cord. All right, so inside these three layers here you can see the spinal cord. All right, so these are the three meninges. You have to remember them: dura mater, arachnoid mater, and pia mater. Don't ask, please. What do I mean here? It's not that you're going to ask any doubt and I'm telling you not to ask. This here is a way for you to remember the order of the meninges, which is very important. Question most of the time comes asking you to write about the structure of the spinal cord, in which case you have to mention all these protective layers, in which case you had to remember the order of the meninges also. We have only three meninges, right? Which one? First is dura mater, then second one we have arachnoid mater, right? And third one we have pia mater. So this is an acronym which will help you to remember us. Don't ask, please, if you can remember us. Don't ask anyone which are the meninges, because the answer is right there. D for dura mater, A for arachnoid mater, and P for pia mater. All right. Then the third is the fluid. Third protection is the fluid. This fluid is called cerebrospinal fluid. Cerebrospinal fluid. Present in the subarachnoid space located between the arachnoid and pia mater. So here we have the arachnoid matter, here we have the pia mater. Between these two layers, there is a space which is called subarachnoid space. Subarachnoid space means sub means inside. Arachnoid matter you know. So the space inside arachnoid matter is the subarachnoid space. And in this space we have this fluid filled. What is this fluid called? Cerebrospinal fluid, or in short CSF. What does it do? It cushions and protects the spinal cord. It helps to remove waste products and provides a buoyant environment, reducing the weight of the spinal cord and allowing it to float within the protective meningeal layers. Alright, so this is what cerebrospinal fluid does. It gives it a buoyant environment so that its weight reduces and it allows it to float inside the protective meningeal layers. Alright, so this was the three important protective layers of the spinal cord. Now here I have a diagram. So suppose what do you say, this is your spinal cord, okay, and if you cut the spinal cord into half from here and then you look it at from the top, this is how it looks. Okay, you cut the spinal cord and then look from the top, this is what you see. Okay, so here this part, this huge part, this is the bony part. You We studied about the vertebral column, right? So this is a part of the vertebral column or the bone. This is the vertebra. All right. Inside the vertebra, first we have the meninges. See, outermost dura mater here. Inside we have the arachnoid matter. Then innermost we have the pia mater. Between arachnoid and dura mater, we have the subarachnoid space, which contains the cerebrospinal fluid. So see, here there is the bony protection, here there is the meningeal protection, and inside here we have the actual spinal cord. You see? Okay, so this is how a spinal cord looks like. If you cut it and look at from the top, bony protection, the actual spinal cord, the three meninges, and then cerebrospinal fluid. There is other parts also mentioned here like the epidural space. This has fat. It also provides protection and cushioning to the spinal cord, right? Then there is subdural space also inside this. Okay, so all these spaces, it kinds of gives a protection to the more, what you say, sensitive or important part, which is the spinal cord. All right, so that was the general structure or the protective or outer layers. Coming now inside the protective layers, we have two deep grooves on the spinal cord in the middle. You can see here there is one groove here, right? Okay, let me just change the color. Yeah, there is one groove here. This is called anterior median fissure. Fissure means groove. Okay, median means in the middle. Anterior means the side is the anterior side. Okay. The second fissure is posterior median fissure. This is posterior. Posterior means, so when you touch your back, the part that you feel of the spinal cord, that is the posterior part. All right. So this is what is coming towards the outside. Posterior, median in the middle, sulcus. Sulcus is this again, the same thing, fissure. So we have two groups here. One is called anterior median fissure. The other is called posterior median sulcus. Okay. Then if you cut the spinal cord across like slicing a carrot, I told you same thing. You cut it from here, look from the top. What you see something like this. We saw the bigger version, right, with all the protective layers. If you remove all the protective layers, this is what you see, the actual spinal cord, right? Now, this actual part of spinal cord is composed of two different matters. One is called gray matter and the other is called white matter, right? What you see here in the center, the darker part, this is the gray matter. And what you see outside, the whole of this white part here, the lighter part here, this is the white matter. All right. Let's look deeper into the gray matter. This is found in the center. See, gray matter is found in the center. Butterfly or H-shaped. You can see the shape here, right? You can either interpret this as an H shape or you can call it as a butterfly shape. Either one is correct. Okay. Now, why is this gray in color? Because it is rich in cell bodies of neurons and unmyelinated interneurons. We said that brain and spinal cord are made of interneurons, right? Which part of the neuron is this rich in? Cell bodies. Remember the part of the neuron? We had a cell body, right? Then we had axon, right? So this particular gray matter is rich in the cell bodies, all right? And we have unmyelinated interneurons, which does not have any myelin sheath covering, all right? So that is gray matter for you. Now, in the spinal cord, you see gray matter inside and white matter outside. Now, if you're looking at brain, the scene is reversed. White matter will be at the center and gray matter will be outside. We'll see that in detail when we deal with the brain part. Okay, so for spinal cord, you need to remember, just draw something like this. If you are asked to draw, just draw a circle and you can show all these fissures. Maybe you can use your pencil for kind of giving a shade, and then you can draw this butterfly shape thing, and then you can then shade it and label it as, like, I have drawn it really bad, I know, but I think you will do a better job of this. You can shade this and label it as the gray matter, right? This gray matter is further divided into what? First, dorsal or posterior horn. Okay, what is this dorsal or posterior horn? See, it's marked here. This is the dorsal or posterior horn. It receives sensory information. You can see neurons coming in here, right? These are sensory neurons which are bringing in information from outside environment into the spinal cord. All right. This is dorsal posterior horn. Which is the dorsal side? When you touch your back and feel the spinal cord, the part that you touch or feel is the dorsal part. And part on the other side, which is like towards your tummy or your heart or your internal organs, that's the ventral side. Okay, so here we have the dorsal horn, which is also called the posterior horn, and it receives sensory information. Secondly, we have ventral or anterior horn. Ventral horn, where is the ventral horn? Here is the ventral horn. See, what does the ventral horn do? It sends motor signals to muscles. Okay, so signals are coming in through the dorsal horn and signals are going out through the ventral horns, which is the motor signal, sending the motor signals. Third, we have lateral horn, but these are present only in thoracic and upper lumbar. We'll see what is thoracic and upper lumbar. So our spinal cord is divided into 5 regions. These are 2 of those regions. Okay, and lateral horn, this is meant for autonomic functions, which is involuntary functions. All right. So our gray matter is divided into what? A dorsal horn for bringing in information, a ventral horn to take out the information. All right. Next, white matter. White matter surrounds the gray matter. You can see here, right? It is rich in axons or nerve fibers, mainly myelinated. We saw that the gray matter is gray because it is rich in the cell bodies and unmyelinated interneurons. White matter is white because it is rich in axons and mostly myelinated. And myelin sheath, if you know, it's white in color, like creamish and whitish in color. So because this area is rich in myelinated axon, it is called white matter. These fibers form pathways or tracks. Okay, so nerve fibers which are present in the white matter, these form tracks or pathways for what? For carrying impulses or information to different parts of the body. First, we have ascending tracks. Okay, what does ascending track do? It carries signals up to the brain. Ascending means it's going up. What is up there? Brain. So, ascending tracks carry signals up to the brain. Alright, then we have descending tracks. Descending means coming down, which means Descending tracts carry signals down from the brain. I think that's easy for you to remember, right? White matter, rich in axons, and these nerve fibers. And what do axons and nerve fibers do? These take signals or impulses, carries or transport signals and impulses. And this transport happens in two ways. Like told you that spinal cord is like a highway, right? Now this is a two-way highway. So one way is the ascending tract, which is taking up into the brain the signals. On the other side, the second lane is the descending tract, which is taking signals down from the brain. Okay, so yeah, yeah. We have the ascending tracts and the descending tracts. You don't have to remember all the names in here, but a few of the names that is mentioned in your study material we'll discuss. Maybe you should know that. So if you ever have to draw it, this is the easiest diagram I could find. So this is your gray matter, right? And outside is all your white matter. And here in pink you have all the ascending tracks. Ascending tracks which are taking information to the brain. The first one is gracile fasciculus. Second one, cuneate fasciculus, but yeah, you can ignore this one. Third is posterior spinocerebellar tract. You need to know this. Then this is anterior spinocerebellar tract. You need to know this. Then you have anterolateral system, which is spinothalamic. This. Okay. Descending tract, taking it down from the brain. We have lateral cerebrospinal tract here. We have rubrospinal tract here. We have vestibulospinal tract here. Then we have medial reticulospinal tract here. We have tectospinal tract here. And we have anterior corticospinal tract here. Do not worry about these names. Even if you don't remember these names, it's perfectly okay. For a 10-mark question, if you can just write what is an ascending tract and what is a descending tract, that helps. Okay, just remember what is the ascending tract and what is a descending tract. Ascending tract takes information to the brain. These are composed of myelinated neurons which are taking information to the brain, right? Descending tract, same, myelinated neurons bringing information down from the brain. All right. Let's look into a few of the ascending tracts. First, we have spinothalamic tract. Okay, spinothalamic tract here. Spinothalamic tract. It carries sensory information from spinal cord to the thalamus. So if you remember the name spinothalamic tract, you will know that it carries, since it is ascending tract, it will be carrying information towards the brain. Where in the brain? To a part called thalamus. Thalamus is a part of the brain. So spinothalamic tract carries sensory information from the spinal cord to the thalamus. Cell bodies originate in spinal cord and axon ends in thalamus. So how do they transport? These are pretty long neurons, okay, with their cell bodies in the spinal cord and the axon end in the thalamus, which is in the brain. All right. It's a major sensory pathway that transmits pain, temperature, and crude touch sensations. All right. So what are spinothalamic tracts doing? It will be taking information about pain, any change in the body temperature, and crude touch sensation to the brain. All right. Next we have lateral spinothalamic tract. Lateral spinothalamic tract, exactly same as what we have already learned. It is taking information from spine to thalamus. Lateral means side, side of your body, right? It's responsible for, again, pain, temperature and touch. All right. Again, we have seen anterior spinothalamic tract, which is responsible for crude touch and pressure. All right. So we learnt about spinothalamic tract. There are two of them. One is lateral spinothalamic tract, which is taking information from spine to brain. Which part of the brain? Thalamus. And then we have anterior spinothalamic tract. All right. Other than that, we have fascicule gracilis. If you don't remember the name, it's okay. Just remember what is ascending tract. I'm saying that again. Okay. This is involved in touch and conscious kinesthesia. What is kinesthesia? close your eyes and I ask you to touch your nose, will you be able to touch the nose? Yes, right? Even if your eyes are closed, you know where your eyes are, where your mouth is, where your hands are. Like this is called kinesthesia. Even when your eyes are closed, you know where your different parts of the body are. Okay, so this knowledge, this realization is brought by fascicule gracilis, involved in touch and conscious kinesthesia. Then we have anterior and posterior spinocerebellar tract. Earlier was spinothalamic. What was it doing? From spine to thalamus. Spinocerebellar means it's taking information from the spine to your cerebellum, which is another part in your brain. It is involved in subconscious kinesthesia. Same thing, subconscious kinesthesia. Like if you are asleep, you're sleeping, or if you are not voluntarily, like you feel like scratching your hands, but without thinking, you know where to go and scratch it, right? That's subconscious kinesthesia. Okay. Next, we have descending tracts, which are bringing information down from the brain. Let's see a few of them. We have lateral and anterior corticospinal tract. Corticospinal tract, which means it is bringing information from the cortex, which is a part of the brain, to spine. All right, it's there in the name. Corticospinal, which means bringing from the cortex of the brain to spine. It carries signal for voluntary movements, muscle contraction of hands and feet. So if you want to go and grab that pen, the descending tract or the corticospinal tract is telling you to stand, move, use your hands to grab that pen. Voluntary movements, muscle contraction of hands and feet. All right. Then we have medial reticulospinal tract. I'm just telling you this shortly. Again, you don't have to remember these names. Medial reticulospinal tracts. This inhibits motor functioning, which means the earlier one, it was telling you to go and do something like move your muscles. Here, medial reticulospinal tract, it tells you to no, don't move, just sit somewhere. Don't move your muscles. It inhibits motor functioning. Okay. Then we have lateral reticulospinal tract. This stimulates motor functioning. Exact opposite. These are, it is what? It is antagonistic, right? It is telling it to come on, move. You need to move. Use your skeletal muscles. Then we have rubrospinal tract. It helps in coordinating body movement and posture. Okay. So these are the descending tracts. Let's look at the spinal cord segments, right? I told you there are different segments in spinal cord, right? Let's look at those now. Spinal cord is divided into 31 segments. Okay. Each of these segments is composed of a vertebrae. We know what is a vertebrae, right? These are individual bones which are stacked one on top of each other with a vertebral disc in between them, right? You can see it here, right? These are the vertebrae. So there are 31 segments and each segment is composed of a vertebrae. Each segment is associated with a pair of spinal nerves coming out from both sides. So if this is a vertebrae, there will be a pair of nerves coming out from both sides, right? The dorsal root of each nerve enter the spinal cord. This one enters the spinal cord. Ventral exits, comes out of the spinal cord. The one coming in, you know, it is bringing in the information, right? So which neurons bring in the information? It is the afferent neuron, right? Or the sensory neuron. See? And the neuron that is bringing out information, exiting from the spinal cord, will be the efferent neuron or the motor neuron. All right. So spinal cord has 31 segments. Each segment is composed of a vertebrae. Each vertebrae has a pair of spinal nerves coming out from both sides. The nerves that are arising in the spinal cord are called spinal nerves. If it is arising from the brain, then we call it a cranial nerve. Here we are dealing with the spinal nerves. All right. So, a pair of spinal nerves means two spinal nerves are coming out. One which is coming in, dorsal root, which is sensory or the afferent. one that is coming out, which is ventral, motor or efferent. So I told you when you touch your back, the part you are able to feel is the dorsal part. That one which is closer to the skin, it has a sensory part. Okay. Inside, which you are not able to touch, the other part of it is the ventral part, and it has the motor or efferent neurons. All right. The 31 segments that we said is makes up the spinal cord. These are further divided into 5 regions. Okay, you can see here it is starting from the skull, goes up till this pelvis, and there are all these vertebra which makes up these 31 segments, and these 31 segments are divided into 5 regions. The first is the cervical region. It has 8 spinal nerves. Cervical region is like behind your neck, like the first part of the spinal cord. All right, and there are 8 spinal nerves coming out of the cervical region. Then we have thoracic. Thoracic means it's connected to the lungs. Okay, thorax. It has 12 spinal nerves coming out of it. Then we have lumbar region, which has 5 spinal nerves coming out of it. Fourth, we have sacrum, which has 5 spinal nerves coming out of it. Then we have coccyx, which has 1 spinal nerve coming out. So if you add up all of these, 12 plus 8, 20, 25, 30, 31, adds up to 31. All right. You need to remember these. What are the 5 regions? Cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacrum, and coccyx. And what are the number of spinal nerves coming out? 8, 12, 5, 5, and 1. Each of these segments connects to specific parts of the body. Like I told you that thoracic is connected to your lungs. Alright? Similar, each of these segments are connected to each specific part of your body. Now, I have some shortcuts for you to help you remember all the 5 parts of the spinal cord and the number of spinal nerves arising from it. So, yeah, imagine a normal day for you, okay? So, your breakfast will be at 8 in cervical. This is a cafe which gives amazing breakfast. You will get dosas and idlis or parathas, whatever you prefer. But you have to reach there at 8. 8 o'clock at cervical, you have your breakfast. Then after 4 hours, lunch at 12 in thoracic. This is an amazing restaurant which gives you amazing thalis. Okay, both in North Indian and South Indian. So you can have lunch at 12 in thoracic. Then evening you can have drinks at 5 in lumbar one day, or you can have dinner at 5 in sacrum. Okay. Finally, you have a very long and tiring day and you still have work left. It's 1 a.m. at night, and the only place you can get a coffee is at coccyx. Okay. So, how do you remember? Breakfast 8 a.m. in cervical, lunch at 12 in thoracic, drinks at 5 in lumbar, or dinner at 5 in sacrum, and finally, coffee at 1 in coccyx. Okay, so you can remember it by the time, which is 8, 12, 5, 5, and then 1. In case you forget to remember the name of the cafes, I have another 2 tricks for you. First is, if you take all the first letters, what do you get? You get cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, coccygeal, right? You can remember it as control, save and copy. CTL for control, save and copy. C stands for cervical, T for thoracic, L for lumbar, S for sacral, and C for coccygeal. If not, I have another technique for you. Now, this is something that you might have to remember. Cervical Thor felt lump in his sacred hot cocoa. Who doesn't love a hot chocolate, right? If you get some really hot chocolate without any lump of chocolate or cocoa powder in it, wow, what's better than that? Pure heaven, right? So, cervical Thor. This Thor guy we are talking about has a very bad cervical pain, okay? I know you might have heard about people having cervical spondylitis or cervical pain. It's connected to back of your neck. So this Thor guy has a cervical pain, okay, but he loves his morning hot cocoa or hot chocolate, but he doesn't like it all lumpy. So here, when he got a cup of hot chocolate, he could feel lumps in it, and he wasn't happy about it also, right? So cervical Thor felt lump in his sacred hot cocoa, where cervical is the first part, thoracic, which here I am representing by Thor, is the second part. Then what did Thor feel? Lump for the lumbar in his sacred, which is sacral, hot cocoa. Cocoa stands for coccygeal. All right, you can pause here, think about it, which you find easy. Okay, so you can have dinner at 8, lunch at 12, drinks at 5, or dinner at 5, and late night coffee at 1. All right, let's move forward with the structure. So, yeah, at two parts, two regions of the spinal cord, bulges or enlargements are found. All right. See, I have a crude image of the spinal cord here. What we are saying that at two region, spinal cord bulges or enlarges. You can see here. See here the slight bulge. One, two. Which are those two regions? Cervical and lumbar region. One right at the top and second one right at the bottom. So what does this bulge or enlargement for? These enlargements accommodate the greater number of nerve cells and connections needed to serve the limbs, right? So the top one, cervical enlargement, this has more number of neurons and connections which are needed to serve the limbs. So which are the upper limbs, your hands, right? So cervical enlargement helps your hands. The bottom one, lumbar enlargement, this would be for your lower limbs, which are your legs. Alright, so your spinal cord has two bulges or enlargements, one each for your upper limb and one for your lower limb. Where are they? One at right at the top for cervical and one at the bottom in lumbar area. Alright. Coming further down, we have conus medullaris. You can see here, conus medullaris. This is tapering. Tapering means something that is becoming narrow as you go down. You see, there is an enlargement and this enlargement is narrowing down as you go down. So that's why this is called tapering. Distal means away from the main cell body, right? We talked about proximal and distal when we were talking about nerve degeneration. All right, remember? So this is tapering distal end of the spinal cord. What is this called? Conus medullaris. What does this do? It gives rise to sacral and coccygeal nerve roots. These are the two bottom parts of the spinal cord. We said there are five parts. Which are they? Control, save, copy. Cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, coccygeal, right? These are the last two parts. So conus medullaris gives rise to the sacral and coccygeal nerve roots. How many nerves are there? Last one was coccygeal, 1 a.m. coffee, remember? And then this 5 p.m. dinner. So we have five. There are five nerves arising in the sacral region and one pair of nerves arriving at the coccygeal region, right? So, conus medullaris gives rise to sacral and coccygeal nerve roots which continue downward as the cauda equina. Coming further down, it forms another part called cauda equina. Cauda equina. So, this term equina, I don't know if you know, but equine, the word is related to horses. Okay. Cauda means tail. So, cauda equina is a collection of nerve roots resembling a horse's tail that extends downwards from the end of the spinal cord. So, spinal cord ends here. Then there is further a collection of nerve roots that is extending from the spinal cord and looks like the tail of a horse. Now, this part is called cauda equina. After conus medullaris, we have cauda equina. So this was the general structure of spinal cord that you need to know. All right. Now let's look at the functions of the spinal cord. So the first function is it carries messages, right? So yeah, nothing new. Every part of the central nervous system is responsible for carrying messages. So do the peripheral nervous system also. It's all about generating and carrying messages, right? So what does spinal cord do? It acts like a highway for nerve signals. We said this is a two-way highway, right? With ascending tract and descending tract to the brain from the brain. All right. So that is spinal cord for you. What does it do? It's involved in brain-body communication, right? Body to brain ascending, brain to body descending. All right. Next, it controls reflexes. Reflexes are automatic responses, like something that you do without thinking. For example, if you touch something hot, you remove your hand suddenly, right? Without even thinking, you don't even have to think. That's what called a reflex reaction. It's an automatic response. Spinal cord can handle these without asking the brain first. This saves time. So, this is like you touching something hot or you touching something hot. These are kind of potential threatening situation for the body. When there are situations like this, your body has a bypass system that you don't have to wait for the information to be taken to the brain first, and then brain processes the signal, and then it tells your body to, okay, it's hot, remove your hand. By the time it would be too late and you would have already burnt your fingers. So here the bypass is that without this whole thing going to the brain, spinal cord immediately takes a decision and say, okay, now you don't move your hand. After you have moved your hand, only then this information goes to the brain that, okay, there was something hot, I went and touched it, but yeah, I removed it anyway. So it's safe, I'm all good. And then brain would be like, oh, okay, cool, you have handled it, fine. Okay. So that is what is a reflex reaction. It saves time. Then it supports motor and sensory functions. Spinal cord helps us to move muscles and feel sensations from different parts of the body. Why? Because it has sensory neurons, right? Because of which it helps us to feel different sensations. Also, spinal cord is involved in autonomic functions, which are involuntary functions like sweating and digestion. All right. So it carries signals, it helps in motor and sensory functions, it helps in autonomic functions, it helps in reflex actions also. Now, reflex action is one of the most important and what uh, what do you say? Very central function of spinal cord. Like spinal cord is something that keeps you safe, immediate safety. So we need to know more about reflex action. We'll study about that too now. See, reflex action is one of the central functions of the spinal cord. What is it? It is involuntary, automatic, and rapid response to a stimulus. It's involuntary, which means you are not thinking it through. You are not doing it on purpose. It's happening automatically, right? And rapid, very quick response to any stimulus. Something that is sharp, something that is hot, okay? Like pulling your hand away after touching something hot. It's an unconscious action that doesn't require any conscious thought and that happens via a reflex arc or a neural pathway. Okay, so this is a very unconscious action which you are not thinking out consciously. And how it happens? It happens through a neural pathway or a path created by the neurons via the spinal cord, and this pathway is called the reflex arc. All right. Now, there are two type of reflexes based on the decision center. Majority of the reflex actions, the decision center is the spinal cord, and such a reflex we call as a spinal reflex. Okay, and the neural pathway involved in spinal reflex is called neural reflex arc. And then we have cranial reflex. Cranium related to brain. Okay, so if the control center is the brain, in this case we call the reflex as cranial reflex, which are very few in number. Most of the reflexes are spinal in nature. Okay, yeah, this is the reflex arc or the neural pathway for reflex actions. So how does it go? The first part is the receptors, the sensory receptors, right? What do they do? These receive the stimulus. Okay, so your hands, you're going and touching something hot. So at the tip of your fingers or wherever your skin, wherever you're touching it, the skin, It has all these receptors, sensory receptors. The moment you touch something hot, the nerve pathway is open, an electric impulse is created, and the signal is taken. To whom? Which neuron is connected to the sensory organs or the sensory receptors? Sensory neurons, which are the afferent neurons, right? So, from these receptors, these signals move to afferent neuron, which is a sensory neuron. From sensory neurons, it's taken to the spinal cord. And inside the spinal cord, there are all these interneurons. They are quickly processing the signal. Okay, it's hot, it's hot, it's hot, it's going to burn you. Come on, move. So it sends the signal to the motor neuron, which is the efferent neuron, which is exiting or taking out the signal. And what does this do? It tells your muscles, your skeletal muscles in your hands, okay, move your hand, it's hot, you're going to burn yourself. And what happens? As a result, you move your fingers away from the whatever hot it was there. Alright, so the neural pathway for this reflex action, it starts from the sensory receptors, then to the sensory neurons or the afferent neurons, and from the sensory neurons to the spinal cord, from spinal cord to the motor neurons, and finally to the effector, which is your skeletal muscle. Okay, again, how does the flow go? Receptor, then sensory neuron, right? From sensory neuron, it goes to the spinal cord, right? From spinal cord to motor neuron. Motor neuron takes the signal to the what? Effector. What is the effector here? Your skeletal muscles, which is telling you to move your hands. Alright. So this is very important. Remember the reflex arc. Alright. Now, based on the action points, reflexes can be of two types. First is somatic reflex. What is somatic reflex? Result in contraction of skeletal muscles. Okay. Remember somatic nervous system, what was involved in? Voluntary responses. What are voluntary responses? Like moving your hands, moving your legs, walking, picking something. All these was what? Something you do on purpose. Where you are using your skeletal muscles, right? When you want to walk to somewhere, you are using your skeletal muscles. So those were controlled by somatic system. And when the reflex makes your skeletal muscles contract or move, those reflexes are called somatic reflex. Okay. Obviously, if one is somatic, the other has to be autonomic, right? So the other is autonomic and the other name is visceral reflex. Here, it results in contraction of smooth muscles. Smooth muscles are the muscles that are involved in your internal organs like your stomach, your intestines, right? Cardiac muscles or even glandular secretions. So this is something which is not in your control. You cannot control your heart. You can control your stomach, right? So autonomic reflex is for something that is involuntary, which is not under your control. Alright, so there are two types of reflexes based on your action point. First is somatic, results in contraction of skeletal muscles, similar to somatic nervous system, involved in what? Again, voluntary, which was related to skeletal muscles. So here common point is skeletal muscles, okay? These are not voluntary or involuntary. Reflexes are always involuntary only. I am just telling you, how you can connect it with the nervous system. And here the common point is skeletal muscles, not voluntary or involuntary. Just remember that. Somatic nervous system was also involved in controlling the skeletal muscles. Somatic reflex is also involved in contraction of skeletal muscles. Similarly, autonomic was involved in contraction of smooth muscles. There also, here also. Involuntary there, here also involuntary. Here both are involuntary only. Alright, so these were the type of reflex reactions. Now this is some fun part. Let's look at some important examples of reflex reaction. I've chosen a few which are present in your study material. Okay, so first is the knee or patellar jerk. Okay, so if you see here, you can see someone tapping just below the knee of the person, right? And when that person is tapping below the knee, what is happening? The leg is kicking up, right? This is called knee jerk reaction, knee jerk reflex. Sorry, not knee jerk reaction. It would be knee jerk reflex or patellar reflex. Okay, this is quick involuntary movement of the lower leg in response to a tap on the region just below your kneecap. Okay, so this region where this tap is happening, this is called patellar region. That's why this is also called patellar jerk. Okay, if this is something safe, you can try at home. Ask someone to sit on a table with their dangling legs, take a pen or something, and just lightly tap below the kneecap. You can see the person kicking up the legs involuntarily. Okay, just try it. It's like pretty safe. And this is one of the reaction which doesn't involve the brain. Spinal cord takes the decision. Okay, someone is like tapping your feet, just lift your leg. Okay, so this is knee jerk or patellar reflex. Next we have ankle jerk reflex. Okay, this is also called Axial's reflex. Have you guys heard about Axials? So Axials was a hero of the Greek mythology titled Iliad. This was written by Homer. Okay, he was a hero of the Trojan War. You might have heard about Trojan War. I know you might have heard about Trojan viruses, but this is Trojan War. Okay, so the why Aeschylus was famous? Because he was considered invincible. It was believed that his body was not affected. Nobody could hurt his body. He was invincible. But still, he had that one part of the body which was his weak point, which was one of his heels. Okay, so we in English we use Aeschylus heel to refer to something which is a person's weakness. Okay, something that can result in his downfall, a weakness. So yeah, let's not deviate from our bio here. We have a usage called Aeschylus heel. That's why I came to Aeschylus here. Here also heel is involved, but we are talking about a tendon here. Tendon is a connective tissue, a tissue that connects a bone to a muscle. And the tendon here is called Aeschylus tendon. It connects the heel bone to the calf muscle. Okay. So if you lightly tap at this Aeschylus tendon, you will see the leg jerk suddenly. You can try this. It's also pretty safe. Ask someone to lie down, take a pen or something, lightly tap at the Aeschylus tendon part, and you'll see the leg jerk suddenly. Doctors perform this test. Why? To check the health of your nerves and muscles, which is involved in your lower leg and ankle movement. So if your leg is jerking, which means everything is good, your reflex is working. All right. So that was ankle jerk or the Axial's jerk reflex. Again, decided by the spinal cord. All right. Then we have corneal reflex. Cornea is a part of your eye. Okay. This is also an involuntary and automatic reflex wherein your eyes blink when something touches your eye. So if you've seen the GIF here, the image here, this clear white part of the eye you see, this is called cornea. Okay. If you touch this part with something even very soft like wisp of a cotton, you will see the eyes blink. Okay, this is called corneal reflex, and this reflex helps to protect the eyes from dust, debris, or even sudden bright light. So someone flashes a light on your face, you blink your eyes, right? That's also a reflex reaction which is meant to protect your eyes. So, and this reflex is called corneal reflex. All right. Next we have Babinski reflex. So yeah, if you have seen babies, just try this out, okay? So this is a reflex that is considered normal in infants. So when you stroke the sole of their feet, it causes the big toe to extend upward. Okay, so their toes goes up and their other fingers will fan out or spread out. Okay, see here. This toe will go up and this fingers will spread out. This is called Babinski reflex. Note, this is very normal for infants up to 2 years. If any of the adults show this reflex, it is considered not normal. It indicates potential damage to the nerves. Alright. So Babinski reflex is something that is normal for the infants, not for the adults. Okay, in any of the adults you see this reflex, it indicates a potential nerve damage, which could be due to stroke or it could be due to any tumor. All right, so that's what that was Babinski reflex. All of these reflexes you can try on people. Okay, this like pretty safe reflexes. It would be fun also. You can see how many of you have normal reflexes and how many of you don't have any normal reflex. All right. Yeah, last we have abdominal reflex. I didn't get any video to show you this. So here what happens in that, when your stomach muscles contract or move inward in response to a gentle stroke on your abdomen. So try gently stroking your abdomen and you can see your stomach muscles contract or move inward. This is called abdominal reflex. You might feel ticklish also because I definitely do. Okay, so for me, this is like a pretty strong reflex. So this is a test that doctors use to check if the nerves in your lower back and spine are working correctly or not. So all these reflexes in one way or the other tell you about the health of your spine, the neural pathway, your reflex arcs. Okay, so that was abdominal reflex for you. And with that, we are at the end of this session also. Reflex reaction and spinal cord altogether. All right. Let's look at some of the previous year questions now. What kind of questions have come from this topic before? First one, June 2024, again, describe the structure and function of the spinal cord. So we have seen the structure and function of the spinal cord. When you are asked the structure, first write what is the spinal cord. You have learned the shape, right? Long, cylindrical, oval, that thing. And then structure, you start with the outer layers. Start with vertebra. You write about the vertebral column. Then you write about the meninges. All right, there are three meninges. What are they? What was that? Don't ask, please. Remember, don't ask me which are the meninges. You know, don't. What? Dura mater. Ask a arachnoid matter. Right? What was the last one? Please, pia mater. Right? So these are the meninges. Then we have the cerebrospinal fluid in the subarachnoid space. Where is it? Between the arachnoid matter and pia mater. Then we can write about the fissures and sulci. After that, you come inside and there you have the gray matter and the white matter. You have to write what is the white matter, what is it composed of, and then you have to write about the gray matter and what is it composed of. All right. Then you have to write about the ascending and descending tracts which you find in the white matter. You don't have to name all of those. Just write ascending and descending tracts. And in gray matter, you have to write about the dorsal and ventral roots. All right. And then you have to write about the five parts, right? The five parts and the nerves that are coming out. These are also part of the structure. All right. You know which are the parts, right? I gave you a mnemonic for that. CTL, save copy, right? Thoracic, that was breakfast at 8 a.m. Then we have, sorry, cervical, which is breakfast at 8 a.m. Then thoracic, lunch at 12. Lumbar, drinks at 5. Then sacral, again dinner at 5. Then the final midnight coffee at 1. Okay, these are the number of nerves. So with that, you should be able to remember that also. Okay, so you have to write all of this when you are asked about structure and then function. We know the four functions of the spinal cord. That would give you the whole 10 marks. All right. Then in June 2022, it came with the help of a diagram, describe the structure and functions of the spinal cord. So, yeah. So when you're asked to draw with a diagram, you can just draw that crude diagram of that, the easier one with a butterfly shape in the middle. Okay, I'm not a good drawer. Yeah, you can draw it yourself. Yeah, and you can show the gray matter and then you can show the white matter. All right, you can show the nerves coming out, right? This a basic diagram would be good for you, and then you can draw the spinal cord, the shape of it, and show the five parts. Which are the five parts? CTLSC, right? Show these five parts, and with that you have drawn it. You can describe the parts, structure, function, done, 10 marks. Alright. 2020, again the same question, illustrate the structure of a spinal cord and explain its function. We have covered all of that in this session. Alright. So yeah, that was it. Thank you for watching and all the best for your exams. If you have found this video helpful, please like, share and subscribe. Okay. See you in the next video. Until then, happy learning.